Bushings. Seriously. Chad, Too Fast Matt here with Dirt Obsession. Today we are doing bushings for the Polaris Sportsman XP 1000. I know a lot of you guys who follow the channel have this machine, either this or the 850. It's really going to be the same for both. Basically going to be the same for the Sportsman 500 and up, and for the Razors, the 900s and the 1000s. So bushings all pretty much going to be the same. Now, if you're a decent mechanic, your video will probably look a lot like Partzilla. If you are a half-assed garage mechanic like Too Fast Matt and myself, you end up with this. But really, the job's not that hard. I just got the machine back, getting some warranty work on the diff and getting the ball joints replaced. But they wanted like $300 to do my bushings, man. And bushings cost like $40. So I went ahead and got aftermarket, went with DK Off-Road, company out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And it was basically a choice between that and garage products. You get a little bit more with the DK Off-Road stuff. I think the quality is probably about the same. Lifetime bushings with both. You get everything with the DK Off-Road for under $300. With the garage products, it was around $300, and you don't get shock bushings. So there's kind of the difference. I think there's a lifetime warranty on garage products, not with the DK Off-Road. But going ahead and doing these bushings that you're not going to have to do every year is kind of an advantage. They are lifetime bushings, so they say.
Immortals. We put their name to the test.
But OEM bushings are 8-month bushings. So 1,000 miles, completely shot. There's wiggle in absolutely every connection point. So we're going to get that taken care of today. Oh, I feel like I fucking ramble on. Rolling? Take one?
It's on.
Alright, we're doing the shock bushings. You're going to have to take the shock off. Anyway, we're going to do upper A-arm. We're going to do shock. Upper A-arm, lower A-arm. Just because we've done the other side and that feels like the right way to go. Especially when you start to get a buzz on. Start high, work your way down. It gets easier towards the bottom. For whatever reason. Access and all that. But we'll show you the play and the wiggle and the shocks. They're pretty bad. They definitely need to be replaced. Alright, here's the top of the shock bushing. That's a ton of wiggle. You're Too Fast, Matt. Get that sucker off on both sides and get her all tightened up. Like I said, 1,000 miles. Just going to go ahead and do everything since we're taking it apart. The only bushings on the other side that weren't really bad were the top A-arm bushings. Everything else was shot. So, boom, we take the shocks off. Oh my god, this is going to be a motherfucker. Oh, edit. Okay.
Did you have no idea how easy that was from over here? Look right here, like that was so simple. I mean,
okay, ready to start shooting. Okay. Oh yes, nice.
Yeah.
Just get the shocks
I mean, they usually come right off.
No problem. Not an issue at all for a professional mechanic. Just like Partzilla. So, yeah, I don't know why you would struggle with this at all. Any part, really. Everything's accessible. No, seriously.
It's not like the bolts ever strip or anything.
On that note, notice the lower front bumper is already off. All the plastics are off. They're over here. That's an accessibility thing. Very hard to get to everything if you have it in there. If you have a winch, I do not have a winch. This is part of the reason why is accessibility. Even though I know I probably need one, but that stuff is hard to get to. The connection points, the pivot points at the top of the A-arms. So do yourself a favor and take that front bumper area directly off before you even start. You're going to need to anyway. So save yourself the frustration. Too Fast Matt and I were having a conversation earlier about how we like to do this kind of stuff with minimal effort. Minimal effort means taking as little of the machine apart as possible. So believe me when I say you got to take that part off. Because if you didn't have to, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, we don't take anything off if we don't have to.
No.
Because I'm probably going to break it, or it's already broken. I need it to like hold together with some glue.
Yeah, the more shit we take off, the less likely it is to run in the future. So we ain't trying to be all like that.
See how easy that was?
No problem.
I didn't even really sweat
Professional
that.
mechanic. Hey, on the bushings are falling out already. So they're shot. They're actually not, they don't look like they're in that bad of shape, but if you, take the camera, if you can get up, you can see that. That is a lot of wiggle and a lot of play. That's how you know they're no bueno.
So these are a little tougher to get to.
Yeah, this one's hard to get to. Not for a trained professional. And you get it on there. You got a short stroke this one. Yeah.
That's what she said.
She said that to you? A DK Off-Road also recommends that you clean these off with brake cleaner because there's a film when they release from the mold. You want to get that film off, so hitting them with a quick shot of brake cleaner and then wiping them down real good pretty much does it. Alright boys, so what we're doing now is greasing the shock bushings. Just going to put a little bit of grease around each bushing. Slide it into the shock after you clean it real good. That old toothbrush works pretty well for cleaning the inside of the bushing mount, the mount area on the actual shock or on the A-arms themselves. And then we're going to do the same thing with the actual, I don't know what you call this, shaft, the bushing shaft or whatever. Somebody will correct me, that's all good. These DK Off-Road in the instructions says that these things fit tight, and they do. It's the shaft that fits tight inside the bushings. Putting the bushings in is easy. Then when you put the shaft in, that fits very tight. Don't put too much grease on, because the more grease that is on there, a little bit of grease lubes it. A lot of grease makes it really hard to push. And when we did the other side, we were having a problem with pushing the opposite bushing out. So a little bit of pressure. This is probably not the right way to do this. A press or even like a C-clamp or something would probably work good, but for our purposes, we're going to use a soft hammer. Just give her some taps. Boom. And she's in. Alright guys, so if you go with DK Off-Road bushings like I did, one thing, if this is the first time you've done bushings, you're probably not going to know. DK Off-Road doesn't really, comes with instructions, but it's not clear on what bushings go where. For the most part, you can tell by size. You take them off, use the same size bushings to put back in. One thing you don't want to mistake is front and bottom shock bushings, or top and bottom shock bushings. Top over here are thinner, bottom are thicker. You can see on the shock, thinner on top, thicker on the bottom. Just don't screw that up, because if you put the thinner on the bottom and you wrench it down and then realize that now your short, thicker one, they won't fit on top, and you screwed up your lower A-arms. So one thing about DK Off-Road bushings, they don't come packaged like they would with garage products. They don't tell you what's front, what's lower. Like I said, not a big deal. For the most part, you pull them off and that size is obvious, but that's one thing you don't want to screw up, are the shock bushings, top and bottom. Make sure to take this brake cable off. That is, what size is that? Is that like a 25?
25, T25.
Yeah, T25. Some of them have rivets, in which case you'd probably need a rivet gun to put it back in, like the razors. Older razors have rivets. Then it's just a matter of taking the ball joint off. It's got that retaining bolt in. Pop that retaining bolt out. A little bit of wiggle gets that off. The one bolt you will have problems with is on the front of the top A-arm. This bolt wants to touch, so it's hard to do it by yourself, but having a buddy, Matt wiggles on the A-arm, and then they actually take the back one off, get the front one loose, take the back one off, wiggle it around until we can get this bolt to pop out. But when you try to pull it straight back, it wants to hit the back of the radiator, but it will come off. You just got to wiggle it around, play with it a little bit, and then it actually goes in easier than it comes off, so don't get discouraged. Okay, now we're taking the top bolt of the top A-arm from the rear out. This one's a little bit hard to get the wrench on the back side. It's giving us a little bit of a fit. Just Persistence and short strokes. Persistence and short strokes. Name of the game with taking the A-arms off of this one.
I'm used to it.
Yeah. So again, this is the I'm no expert method of removing your bushings, but I feel like I keep my bushings relatively greased. If you saw the video, I just greased these things a few months ago, and you're going to see when we pop them out how dry and nasty they are. Lesson learned, grease your zerks a lot. Like every couple of months, like every 2 months a lot. Like grease them a lot. Every couple of rides, grease your zerks, because these are dry as heck, and I freaking greased them just a couple of months ago.
And if you're in Kentucky and you're not barefoot doing this,
Yeah, well, we're Kentucky, so we're barefoot. Who wears shoes? Who wears shoes to change bushings? I want to know. I want to meet the guy. Dry as all get out. Not necessarily in horrible shape, in pretty bad shape. Definitely worth changing, but not greased at all for just a couple of months. Like, I guess maybe like 6 months now, but I haven't ridden it in 6 weeks either, so just a handful of rides. Of course, when you pay $300 for a set of bushings, you don't have money for the proper equipment. You gotta make do. This is how I've always done shit. Half-assed. But
gets it done.
gets the job done. Alright boys, this top rear A-arm is gonna give you a bit of a problem. There is no easy way to get to that. If there is an easy way and you know a trick, by all means let us know. We took that, we took the mud guard off that side, but it took some finagling and a bit of patience by old Too Fast Matt himself.
Who knew I had patience?
But wow, that one was
Tank's
tough.
right in the way, so like I had to snake up in here like this and try to get it. That's the only way.
Yeah, we were thinking the next option was maybe try to get it from the other side, but just not a lot of good area to work. Be patient, work around it. Taking that brush guard or the mud guard off helps just a little bit, but that is the most significant snag on these bushings we've had so far. A bit of a pain in the butt. Everything else has been pretty smooth.
Yeah. That's it.
All right, boys, so we are getting the lower A-arm off. It looks like you have to take the axle off to get the front side of this lower A-arm off. You don't, you just have to come in with a wrench from the top side, get it on, and I just took it off. Get it on around it and then come at the front, attached to the bolt with your wrench, and then you can grab it. I mean, like I say, at first sight, it really looks like you're gonna have to take the axles out. You really shouldn't have to. It's just some finagling with that wrench to get it on there and get it latched on. And you can leave the axles right where they are, save yourself a little bit of time. The back one was a lot more straightforward, so no issues back there. But don't bother taking the axles off. But if you have a winch, you're probably gonna have to take that off. Okay, first step in the rear bushings is gonna be jacking the machine up, obviously. Take the tires off and do one side at a time. Work on this side first. Get those knuckle bushings. Not sure if the play is showing up on here. I'd put grease in it just to be able to ride a little bit last weekend, so have to contend with that now, which kind of sucks. But the grease kept it just tight enough where I wasn't worried about it. But bushings are definitely in rough shape. A lot of play in that. So do the A-arm and the shock bushings and tighten her up a bit. I don't have sway bar bushings right now. They probably need to be replaced too, but not as worried about the sway bar right at this particular moment in time. Okay, now that the tire's off, I think I'm going to do this top arm bushing first, because it's pretty straightforward. Got one here, and then one connection right here at the top. So that's super easy, pretty straightforward. Bottom is not hard either, but the shock is connected to it. The shock's connected to it down here. Sway bar is connected to it, and then the brake cable is connected to it, and then two connection points on the A-arm. But here and here. These rear brakes are sealed in with a rivet gun, which I don't have, so maybe I can pop the rivets back in. If not, it'll be zip tied temporarily. Not a big deal. Alright guys, once that top A-arm bushing is off, you can take the bushings out of the top of the hub and then the bottom, actually the top of the arm. So you can see these bushings are ready to come out pretty easily, even though they're greased. But these ones are going to need a little bit of positive encouragement. So, just, oh well, not even. Yeah, and
awesome, man.
That's all the positive encouragement. See, when you stay positive, greasy things happen in life. That is grease from this weekend, because Flying Brian made me go out and ride, even though I really had to clean and replace bushings. So now I get to clean and replace greasy bushings.
I'm proud of you, dude. We had so much fun.
Oh, it's so greasy.
Get that finger out there, I got you.
No. Oh, it's so greasy.
My turn, bro. My turn.
Yeah, go for it.
Wait.
Let me warm it up for you. Kai wants some.
That's a little big there.
Yeah.
No, I am glad though that we rode Friday or Saturday, because it was like 5 miles of awesomeness.
You get around the dog.
If you hear it heavy breathing, it's this reason right here. It's not me with the lubed up hoe.
Alright guys, so we're taking the lower off. Took the lower bolt out of the hub. The bolt out of this sway bar link connects to here, and then the bolt out of the shock. So I'm going to take the shock off because I do have shock bushings. About to take this. So far everything is a 15 millimeter bolt, 15 or 5/8. Yeah, 15 or 5/8 in standard metric. So we're going to take the shock off and then finish. The only thing left to take off is this A-arm connection here, and then the A-arm connection up under there. Then the lower A-arm will be completely off. Shock bushings will be done. Only thing left to do is put it back together and start on the other side. Alright boys, so for the most part this thing goes back together just the way it was installed. Pretty straightforward and pretty easy. The one problem that I had was putting the shock back on. So the easiest way to do it is put the shock on the far side of the upper mount. Put the bolt through the lower mount first, because that one's more difficult. You can't push it into place because of the way the A-arms wrap around it. It's getting dark out, so it's kind of hard to see. There's no good way to like manipulate it if you don't do that one first. So do the bottom first. The top will go on the far side, and then if I can hold this light just right, the top will pull right into place easily. So that's why it's easiest to do that one second. Other than that, all the connections on the A-arm on this back side are real easy. Didn't show a lot of it because it's basically just loosening bolts and then doing the bushings, which are all pretty much the same, and then tightening the same bolts. So that's the tip. So far, pretty straightforward. Save yourself a couple $100 and do it yourself. Alright guys, one more tip with this. This bottle knuckle bushing for me was really tough because I greased it even though they were bad, so that I could ride just a little bit last Saturday. Took it easy, so I wasn't too worried about it, but I did put grease in it, which is making those bushings hard to get out. So what I'm using, what this is the carrier from the upper A-arm bushing on the other side. So if this is the first one you're doing, I recommend starting with the top so that you have one of these longer carriers, bolt carriers, to push that out, because it's better surface contact than like a punch or a screwdriver or anything like that. These have, the upper carriers are much thinner than these lower ones, so you have enough play to be able to push it up against the inside of the bushing and then just take a rubber mallet and hammer it through. But this one gave me and Flying Brian a heck of a time on the other side. This one, you can see it's already coming through on this side after about 2 minutes of playing with it. So, little tip I learned: if you're having the same issues as me, that's the easiest fix.